really want to dive into today. One has to do with Governor Whitmer in Michigan. And this is a COVID story kind of, but has a bunch of pieces to it. It's got COVID, it's got Governor Whitmer, it's got race as an issue, and it has FBI Director Wray, Christopher Wray. But I'll start with Whitmer. So she, obviously, Governor of Michigan, that has been one of the most extreme lockdown states in the country, continues to be, until the Supreme Court of Michigan ruled one of the cases of extreme lockdown by Governor Whitmer, executive order after executive order after executive order, shutting things down, keeping things frozen in place, justified by COVID. So they have the mask and the businesses shutting down, everything they can think of to stymie the economy in Michigan. I think Michigan is one of the states that Democrats really think they can take in the 2020 election cycle. So the last thing they want to have is a bustling economy, because everyone in Michigan will figure out that the bustling economy is coming from Trump economics, Trump free market economics, and that they do not want. They would love to hold on to Michigan in the 2020 elections, and so they love to keep it shut down, and people are frustrated and people are angry. So Whitmer has had numerous extreme executive orders. So finally, someone took her orders to the courts, and the Michigan Supreme Court ruled, previously, last week, ruled that all of her orders related to COVID, all the shutdown, mask, shelter in place, social distancing, businesses can't be open, all of that, the Supreme Court of Michigan had ruled, based on the Michigan Constitution, that she, Governor Whitmer, had absolutely no authority to do that. They found her executive orders unconstitutional. She responded beyond spewing by saying, well, okay, I don't agree, but I need to have, she asked the court for some leeway, some time for her to transition, whatever the government's going to be doing about COVID, to transition from her militant shutdown mode into this new era where she can, she's probably thinking of cooking up other regulations, but the new era where she couldn't any longer enforce the executive orders. The Michigan court said no, we said unconstitutional, and therefore you didn't have the right to start with to do what you did, and therefore you're not going to get a break to continue in some other way or orchestrate continuing doing what you're doing. We said you don't have authority. So this is an unhappy governor. And then you have people in Michigan, many, many unhappy Michiganders who did not want to live in a shutdown state for so long. So there were arrests last week announced. The FBI announced they had tracked down and located a militia group called Wolverine Watchmen. Wolverine Watchmen, and this group was going to, it was claimed, alleged, and they had apparently undercover people, FBI people, in this group. So they're actually hearing the discussion at their meetings. But this group is planning to kidnap Governor Whitmer. And they were going to hold her hostage, I guess, until make demands like, we demand you do this, whatever they were going to demand. They wanted to make demands, and they actually apparently had more than just the conversation, which may have been protected by the First Amendment, but they took some actions toward, made a first step toward this conspiracy to kidnap the governor. Of course, they were arrested, as they should be. We cannot have, we talk about lawlessness in this country. You cannot have organizations taking the law into their own hands and planning on getting after and punishing political people they don't like. You can't have that. And so it's a great thing. In fact, the group is also, now is they're saying they're alleging they also had held meetings and discussed the idea of kidnapping the Virginia governor. And who's also north in Virginia, very, very shut down state, very locked down state, and so you have the FBI expose this militia, and they're being prosecuted. But I want to mention some things that really, 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 really matter about this. Number one, there is growing frustration in America. The more informed you are about the actual facts relating to COVID, the more you understand that the survival rate for pretty much everybody is well over 99%. That the death numbers the CDC has been putting out include about 6 to 8% of people who actually died of COVID alone, and all the rest of them had some serious pre-existing condition. And so People are figuring out the CDC is padding these numbers. They're telling us bigger numbers than they would have to be, than they should. And so you have people less and less afraid of COVID. And you have people, frankly, very, very concerned about the growing tyranny of governors in this country and mayors and city councils. I mean, people at the state and local levels issuing regulations and keeping them in place, keeping people socially distanced, keeping people wearing masks in public, mandatory masks, keeping people locked down in one form or another based on COVID. And the more facts you understand, the more you read experts like the Great Barrington Declaration came out last week. Brilliant piece. Over 4,000 doctors, actual doctors, experts signed on to say there's absolutely no justification for the shutdown procedures we're engaged in because of COVID based on the facts of COVID. Unjustified. Masks, unjustified. Mandated social distancing, unjustified. We don't quarantine the healthy, unjustified. So you have this particular Great Barrington resolution signed by all these experts. You have many other doctors around this country speaking up and saying, this is really, really unwise, this is dangerous, it's unprecedented, it's unhealthy, we shouldn't be doing this. You had Dr. Gold, I mentioned on my show that she'd become very famous, Dr. Simone Gold, who spoke at my conference on September 26th, will be on the show next week. She said at my conference last week, the conference we held in Texas here on September 26th, she said, wearing a mask to keep COVID out is about as effective as building a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes. Her point is that it's completely pointless. Masks do not prevent the spread of the virus, is her point, and she elaborated on it in a great deal. So back to our story in Michigan, you do have, while you can't get behind violent militias and kidnapping, it is incumbent on elected officials to understand many Americans have had enough of the extreme overreaction, the tyranny spewing out of the mouths of governors and local officials over COVID. People are fed up, they are livid. They're trying to push back against this in a variety of ways. And so while I can't support a militia, I will point out something really, really interesting. It's a great analogy or great point of contrast. The kind of district attorney in St. Louis who would say, I'm going to prosecute the people standing on their own property, not discharging their firearms, but holding their firearms, trying to get rid of a bunch of lawless people who broke down a gate to get into their private property and threatened them, that kind of person, she's saying, the district attorney in St. Louis, is protecting the violent and punishing the innocent. She is promoting lawlessness. She is promoting, encouraging, legitimizing the conduct of the people who broke into that neighborhood and threatened those homeowners. So you have on the left legitimizing violence, and this is happening all over the country. I have reams of cases to tell you about, if I could get to them all, about people who are not being prosecuted for violent crime, who are committing protesters who committed violent crime, who get arrested, and almost immediately the prosecutors drop the charges and say, no, we're not going to do that. You had one of the Black Lives Matter or Antifa, one of the two protesters, punch a police officer in the face during a riot, punching a police officer in the face, getting arrested, getting released the very next day, and told no charges would be brought against him. Not going to prosecute him. And this is someone who had 3 previous arrests. So I'm telling you that while on the one hand, this militia conduct needs to be, you have to have the FBI say you can't go around kidnapping governors, you can't have that, you got to try to have law and order. So they're saying you cannot engage in violence even though you're deeply upset. And the leftist prosecutors are saying, if you're deeply upset, go right ahead, engage in violence. Go right ahead. You have legitimization of violence in this country when it's in the hands of the leftists, the conduct of the leftists, and then you have, in this case, the they're saying you can't engage in violence, which is the right answer, but you can't engage in violence in these, or even the talk of violence with respect to the kidnapping. I'm going to hit two other points of this kidnapping charge, this kidnapping plan. I want two other points about this story because I think it's really, really interesting what's happening in Michigan. Number one, this governor is barely willing to comply with the court. She wants to continue her tyranny. She understands how dangerous it is for the Democrat Party if people in Michigan start to see the economy coming back because she finally lifts these restrictions. And the more informed Americans are, the more they realize how unjustified the ongoing regulations are. Again, Simone Gold pointed out, unless you were frozen in place, fearful last year because of the flu season, if you weren't frozen in fear then, you have no reason to be frozen in fear today because of COVID. You have many, many doctors making these points. But the other things I want to mention about this whole Michigan situation, and a real, very, very, very serious concern about the arrest of these people and the language in describing them. First of all, at least one of these people who was arrested for this alleged plot against the governor of Michigan is an anarchist, an anti-Trump anarchist. One of them is a Black Lives Matter supporter, a person who's been at Black Lives Matter. And the point being, what the media is trying to do in telling you the story about this group that engaged in this alleged plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer, and I guess also Governor Northam of Virginia, they're trying to paint a picture of dangerous right-wing militias. And there's no reason to call an anarchist or a Black Lives Matter supporter who were in this group of alleged would-be kidnappers. They don't belong with a category right-wing. They don't belong in that category. These are anarchists. These are crazy people that want no laws at all. They have nothing to do with conservatism. They have nothing to do with the pro-freedom movement. They have nothing to do with Trump. But the media takes a story like this and contorts it and twists it around so that it sounds like right-wing conspiracy theorists did this, or Trump-supporting right-wing conspiracy theorists. And then there were other element to layer in, and this is where I really deeply fault FBI Director Wray. I fault him for many things, but this particular one is FBI Director Wray has actually said in testimony before Congress he is raising the alarm bell about white supremacy and Russian interference. Well, first of all, to be very clear, these militias that engaged in this plan against Whitmer and plan against Northam have nothing at all to do, so far as anyone has uncovered, anything to do with white supremacy. But the media throws in that white supremacy term because they think it helps the left-wing agenda. Because if people think there's a huge white supremacy problem in this country, there's a huge white supremacist movement, which there is not. But if the media can make you think there is, and now these crazy white supremacists are talking about kidnapping governors, of course, those people in the media doing that are instilling in the hearts and minds of Americans fear, and they're instilling a false picture of America as filled with white supremacists, and therefore legitimizing the Black Lives Matter agenda and the whole argument of the left, false argument of the left, that America is a institutionally racist, a structurally racist country. The exaggeration of the prevalence of white supremacy in this country is an exaggeration with an intentional mission by the Democrat media mob in this country to grotesquely exaggerate the size of white supremacy of any movement in this country is an agenda item of the left to give legitimacy, give authority to the Black Lives Matter and Antifa movement. I'm not saying there are no white supremacists in America. I'm sure there are some. It is not the raging movement the left would try to have you believe. There's no basis for tying these, at least on the news reported thus far, no basis for tying this group, this rebel group that was allegedly going to kidnap Governor Whitmer and Governor Northam, no reason to tie that group to this white supremacy name. But when you are FBI Director Wray, and you're frankly, in my sense, not on the team with President Trump. Wray has been sideways with Trump on a number of issues recently. He's in front of Congress and melding together into a white supremacy, Russian interference, all sorts of language that is making the alleged violent white supremacist movement seem to be bigger than it is, which justifies everything the left is doing with the Antifa movement and Black Lives Matter. Christopher Wray is not playing on the same team as President Trump. He is trying to help America. He's pushing the agenda of the left, the lie of the left about a massive white supremacist movement in this country. And through various statements alluding to this group, this Wolverine Watchman, this group that was going after Whitmer, trying to claim that it had to do with race or white supremacy. It has a lot to do with what they're very unhappy about, which is the COVID regulations that simply will not go away, no matter how much data shows are unnecessary, how much experts come out and say it's actually harmful to keep wearing masks, shouldn't keep on with masks. No matter what the real scientists say, the Whitmers and Northams of the world want to keep their state shut down. They want to continue to exercise tyranny, and that is the issue that is causing these groups, these kind of militia groups, to be so outraged, to want to stand up for their rights. And last thing on this, one of the particular people included, I wasn't going to read all their names, but one of the men accused of hatching this plot was part of a Black Lives rally this past summer, and showed support for the Black Lives Matter people. So the plot against Whitmer and Northam at least included someone who is very supportive of Black Lives Matter, and therefore, and another person very anti-Trump, an anarchist, very anti-Trump. This is not the conduct of the Trump supporters. But of course, both Northam came out with a very strong statement saying, well, what do you think? Of course there's a plot against me. President Trump continues to, he told people in fact, Trump has it, open Virginia, free Virginia. And he did the same thing about Michigan, which of course he is. Trump's talking about get rid of unnecessary excessive COVID regulation. Wray is blurring the picture for the American public. Very anti-Trump move, trying to make Trump somehow part of the problem, or having created this problem, which he did not.